All right, audience, we're about more than halfway through our pitches. We've got 3 more great pitches left. Our next pitch is from Rome, Abria, Yolanda, and Lisa. They are going to be talking about how creating safe spaces can combat chronic absenteeism. So let's take a minute here and get everybody. Great, we've got the whole group. I know they've got some technology to share. So whenever you are ready and you start talking, your timer will start. Whoops, we lost Rome again. He's back. There we go.
Okay. Team, are we ready? Abria, your microphone is on mute.
What?
There we go. All right.
Message from Cincinnati Public Schools. Message now, press 1 or stay on the line. So please on hold. Route 179 is running approximately 15 minutes late. Please have your student at the bus stop 10 minutes prior to pickup.
For many of us, robocalls and text messages about buses being late are all too familiar. They set off a series of actions that impact child, parent, teacher, and school productivity for the day. As a parent, I'm going to have to make some decisions when I receive such a message. I can choose to be late for work again, and we'll need to have a conversation with HR. I could take a sick or vacation day, but I'll still have an issue with HR because I didn't provide 24 hours notice of my absence. We could all take a break, watch some movies, play outside, catch up on some sleep, but my kids won't receive any instructional time. Today, we're here to discuss chronic absenteeism and the role transportation plays in this issue. Chronic absenteeism is when a student misses 10% or more of the school year for any reason, excused, unexcused, or suspensions. This is a national, state, and local issue. Ohio Governor Mike DeWine and Ohio Department of Education and Workforce Director Stephen D. Jacklin pledged to cut chronic absences by 50% over 5 years in Ohio schools. A quote from the Fordham Institute states, students who have never been chronically absent are 6 times more likely to read on grade level by the end of 3rd grade and 9 times more likely to graduate from high school on time. On the flip side, being chronically absent can negatively impact both academic and social emotional development. The school board has established some guardrails or non-negotiable goals pertaining to chronic absenteeism. They not only want to see a decrease in chronic absenteeism overall, but want to see decreases among Black and Hispanic students as well. Currently, CPS doesn't really know why students are chronically absent because a consistent tracking mechanism doesn't exist across schools. Furthermore, it's not clear how attendance guardrails are being tracked. In our research into transportation in the elementary years, we found 3 persistent issues. Late buses is one, incongruent drop-off and start times with students having to arrive at school by 7:45 and have buses that arrive at 7 or 8:20, and older siblings in charge of drop-offs, which when they're tasked to drop off their younger students before they head to their own schools, it causes them to be late when they can only get in a certain window to be there. We propose leveraging community resources like the Cincinnati Recreation Centers to serve as pickup and drop-off locations. Leveraging CRCs will help streamline transportation, communication, resources, and safety.
By establishing these care transportation hubs, eligible general education students meet at a designated location, at which point the bus will transport them to and from their school of choice. A hub-site pilot program had been proposed by a former superintendent, but was not researched, mapped out, or implemented. For example, the implementation can be very basic. This is what a Northwest Corridor map will look like. CRC hubs can be used as the access points to other schools or hubs within the corridor. Each hub will have the ability to connect to another hub within its radius, even if it extends beyond the corridor boundary. School districts in Chicago and Florida do use transportation hubs, but they don't seem to be tied to before or after school settings. We are asking that a pilot be implemented with the CRC in the elementary school. Students, families, teachers, and the district would all benefit from this relationship.
Students would have established positive routines which will have enrichment opportunities, additional access to snacks and meals, and more instructional time.
Families will have before and after school childcare. Families will increase CRC and memberships, which will allow all family members to utilize resources.
Teachers will have more development for school site professionals and more time to prepare lessons.
And the district can streamline transportation, collect, track, and analyze guardrails, transport more general education students with fewer drivers, nurture CPS pipeline by offering teens and students in teacher preparation programs the opportunity to serve as childcare providers or mentors. Yes, the bus is running late again. But instead of panicking or when you receive a message from the school, wouldn't it be nice to say, I've already dropped the kids off at the CRC. The kids can eat breakfast there. Someone may be able to explain the math problem that we had trouble understanding. The kids are safe and warm. It's going to be a good day for all of us. Are you ready to tackle chronic absenteeism by connecting area resources for education? We are friends from work. Yolanda, Abria, Lisa, Amanda, and Rome. Thank you.
Thank you all. What a great idea. I know in just a second you're going to get to see the chat, but especially given everything, the weather that we've been having lately, this one is resonating with lots of folks. So thank you for that great presentation. All right, let's hear from our panel. I know lots of ideas about transportation. So anyone who wants to start? Board members or superintendent, I think you all are on mute. There we go. Great.
I'll start on two matters. Transportation is our greatest challenge, very frankly, besides just making sure our children learn and are healthy and moving forward. It's a financial crisis every year because of the cost. But what I was interested in, particularly, we said no to the hubs, but I really like the idea of using, and because I'm on the Recreation Commission, there is not enough interfacing between the school district and the recreation centers, and I think both groups want more interfacing. And I think it's fascinating to talk in terms of expanding the role of the recreation centers, particularly in the early mornings and the after school piece. And I think that's, and I like the idea of hearing the word corridor as part of the description, but I do think interfacing between those two groups, I know we're doing more and more of it, and there's a long history of it, but using the rec centers as hubs might be a reasonable thing to talk about, if not everywhere, but in those places where it would work, as long as our families, of course, are able to get the kids there. That's part of the problem. So we have to then pick up those children that could not get there, but it's still, that's one stop instead of 8 stops or what. I don't, it's fascinating, but good idea with interface.
I'll just say I appreciate the presentation because I do remember when it was proposed to the district during those transportation conversation rounds. And so I'll just say from my perspective, at first I was like, no, that just thinking it was quite alarming and a lot of people wouldn't have that buy-in, but I appreciate the way that you presented it because you did do an in-depth analysis of how this could potentially be beneficial. And so to Vice President Bolton's point, I think this is a great way to establish that partnership, but also revitalize our CRC programs, because we know that a lot of students are not attending, or a lot of children are not attending those community recreation centers. So I think this is a great way to really try to establish that partnership and strengthen that. And then my last question is, would it be maybe ideal, maybe for not all of the transportation routes, but maybe there could be a particular bus that serve as that transportation route to those hubs before school and after school, so that parents still have that option. If they just want their kids to go directly to the school, they can, but those other parents that may need that additional support will be able to engage in that process.
Yeah,
So I don't know if
yes.
that's something that you all have considered.
Yes. So there's going to be people who would always go to the CRC just because, hey, I have to be at work at 7 a.m. and my child doesn't start school till 8:30. The bus doesn't come to 7:45. So I'll drop my child off at the CRC. And so if we're doing College Hill, for example, and you had a College Hill kid get dropped off at the CRC and mom drops him off at CRC, mom goes to work, like, but say she has a day off, she can pick her kid up. She doesn't have to take him to the CRC. But then there'll be drop-in times. So for instance, like the other day when everybody was complaining about getting on the school bus and all that kind of stuff because the sidewalks are still jacked up and people are like, oh, I got to take off work to take my kid to school. No, I'm gonna drop my kid off at the CRC. The bus is gonna round through the CRC, pick those kids up. And so it's a simple, it could be an interface just as much as like, hey, who's at the CRC today? Because the CRC already has drop-in procedures.
Okay. All right. Thank
Yep,
you.
this is another great idea. And I think too that we know that this is one of the governor's priorities as well. And so I know Representative Baker is probably listening with her hat on as a
Yeah.
state of how this could work in other places too.
Yeah, it's a great idea. And something that I've learned that I feel like I have to say every time I'm in committee up here is what the impact is on the workforce. And I think, you know, some of us have myself included, have a really strong desire to do what's right for kids because it's morally the right thing to do for kids' safety, for kids' education. And while that's super important, what seems to speak to people up here in Columbus is money and workforce development. And so I think your pitch is a perfect one to pitch with supporting the workforce in Ohio. And I even wonder about a collaboration with the business community, you know, supporting the CRCs and offering this so that people can get to work. And, you know, you think about there was a survey, I think, that came out today that talked about what % of people would not miss work or would be able to work more if they had reliable transportation and before and after care. And it was like 60-something% of people. So a huge impact to our business communities. And so I think it's super important to pitch to all of us, but it's also important, I think, for us to pull our business partners in and make them hold some of the responsibility for this. And, you know, they'll see the impact in their workforce. So helping them to contribute to the funding of this, I think would be an interesting pitch.
I love another example of how we bring together a coalition who all care about this, maybe from different angles or for different reasons, but the business community, the state house, the district, and CRCs. Great. So this group, go read the chat. You will see parents galore telling you what an amazing idea this is. So enjoy that chat. What a great idea.